She walked into the boardroom with ideas that could change everything. But instead of listening, they dismissed her, talking over her, rolling their eyes, treating her like she didn't belong. To them, she was just another employee with too much ambition. What they didn't realize was that every chart, every dollar, every decision in that room ultimately tied back to her. This wasn't just about ideas being ignored, it was about a truth they were blind to. Because the person they silenced was the one who held the keys to the entire company. Her name was Maya, and on the surface, she seemed like any other mid-level manager. She came to meetings prepared, carried her notes neatly organized, and spoke with quiet confidence. But behind that calm exterior was a woman who had built something far bigger than anyone in the room could imagine. Maya had started her career like many others, working long hours, learning the ins and outs of the industry, and climbing the ladder step by step. But what nobody knew was that years earlier, she had invested in a small but promising venture, one that grew into the very company where she now sat. She had chosen to remain behind the scenes, allowing others to run the day-to-day operations, while she silently became the majority shareholder. Still, Maya wanted to see things from the ground level. She wanted to understand how employees were treated, how ideas were valued, and whether the culture of the company reflected the vision she once dreamed of. So she took on the role of a manager, blending in, observing quietly. At first, it was easy to ignore the small slights, the interrupted sentences, the overlooked suggestions, the way others claimed credit for her work. But over time, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Meetings turned into battlegrounds where her words carried little weight, not because of their merit, but because of who was speaking them.
If you believe in justice, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss a story that matters.
She wasn't seen as a leader, an innovator, or even an equal. To them, she was just another woman in the room. And that was about to become their biggest mistake. The next few weeks were like watching a storm build slowly across the horizon. Maya came prepared to every meeting, her notes crisp, her strategies precise. She didn't speak for the sake of being heard, she spoke with purpose. Yet each time she opened her mouth, the response was the same, silence, followed by the echo of someone else's voice drowning hers out. Her male colleagues dominated the conversations, laughing over her points, dismissing them as too risky or unrealistic. But the sting wasn't just in the words, it was in the looks exchanged, the raised brows, the subtle smirks that said more than any comment could. One afternoon, during a high-stakes strategy session, Maya presented a carefully thought-out plan to expand into new markets. She laid out numbers, projections, and opportunities the company had been missing. It was bold, yes, but it was exactly what the company needed to stay competitive. Before she could even finish, her boss leaned back in his chair with a half-smile and waved his hand. "That's interesting, Maya," he said, his tone patronizing. "But let's hear from someone with more experience." The room chuckled. Within minutes, another executive repackaged her idea, added a few buzzwords, and suddenly the board was applauding. Maya sat silently, her heart sinking. It wasn't just about the idea being stolen, it was about being made invisible. She realized that no matter how prepared, intelligent, or forward-thinking she was, they had already written her off. The disrespect didn't end there. In emails, her contributions were brushed aside. In casual conversations, she was excluded. And during one particular dinner with senior staff, a colleague jokingly referred to her as the intern who thinks she's a boss. Laughter erupted around the table, but Maya didn't laugh. She knew exactly who she was, and soon, so would they. Still, she stayed patient. She observed. She let them reveal themselves in full, their arrogance and bias on display for everyone to see. Each insult, each dismissal, each stolen idea was a thread being woven into a tapestry of truth she was waiting to unveil. Behind closed doors, Maya had access to every financial report, every decision, every future plan. She knew which projects were failing, which deals were collapsing, and which leaders were faltering. The company wasn't as strong as they pretended, and their refusal to listen to her wasn't just disrespect, it was pushing them toward disaster. The breaking point came when the leadership team prepared to pitch a massive expansion deal to potential investors. Once again, her ideas were swept aside. Once again, she was told to leave it to the experts. The arrogance in the room was suffocating, and Maya knew this was the moment she had been waiting for. They thought she was powerless. They thought she was disposable. But what they didn't know was that the person they kept silencing was about to speak in the loudest way possible. The day of the big investor meeting arrived. The boardroom buzzed with energy as executives prepared to present their carefully polished plan, ironically, built on the very strategies Maya had first suggested. She sat quietly at the far end of the table, ignored as usual, while her boss prepared to speak as though he alone carried the vision of the company. Investors filled the room, pens poised, eyes sharp. As the presentation began, Maya listened to her ideas delivered back to her in hollow tones. But this time, she didn't remain silent. When one investor asked a pointed question about projected growth, the room fell into an uneasy hush. The executives fumbled, uncertain. And that's when Maya stood. Calmly, she walked to the front of the room, her presence commanding attention in a way they had never noticed before. With steady hands, she opened the portfolio she carried, not notes for a junior manager, but the documents that proved she was the majority shareholder. Gasps rippled through the room as she spoke with authority, correcting numbers, clarifying strategies, and laying out the vision she had built from the start. The faces around the table shifted from smug confidence to pale disbelief. Her boss's smirk vanished, replaced by stunned silence. Every person who had dismissed her, mocked her, or stolen her words now sat frozen, powerless. Maya didn't need to shout. She didn't need to remind them of the disrespect she endured. Her very presence, her ownership, was louder than anything they could say. And in that moment, the balance of power flipped completely. The men who once ignored her were now forced to listen. The woman they silenced had just revealed the truth. She was the one who owned the company they served. The meeting ended in silence. The same men who once dismissed Maya now avoided her gaze, their arrogance stripped away in a single revelation. Investors, however, leaned in with respect, listening, taking notes, eager to follow the vision of the true leader in the room. For Maya, it wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about humiliating anyone. It was about proving a point, that voices matter, no matter who they belong to. What stung most wasn't that her ideas had been ignored, but that she had been underestimated simply because of who she was. She had the power to reveal the truth, and she did. But how many others never get the chance?